60-home community in an emerging neighborhood located less than a mile from downtown Santa Rosa and the Santa Rosa Marketplace. Catalina Town Homes is available to buyers who have not owned a home in the past 3 years, have good credit, steady income, and the desire to build a home and a community. Burbank Housing works with owners on the construction of their 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom home, so the homeowner's sweat equity counts as a $20,000 down payment. A lower fixed monthly payment means that you can predict your housing costs starting as low as $1,450 a month. Come discover Catalina Town Homes and everything our location has to offer. For applications and more information, visit www.catalinatownhomes.com or call us at 707-526-9782.
Caminando, caminando.
KBBF 89.1 contigo ayer, hoy y siempre.
All right, hello everybody. You are listening to the Queer Life Radio Show, and this is on KBBF 89.1 FM Calistoga. The Queer Life Radio Show, which is LGBT news, modern perspectives, roundtable discussions, and interviews here on KBBF 89.1 FM Calistoga. I am your host, Kaya Kramer, and this show airs live every Friday night, 6 to 8 p.m. in the San Francisco Bay Area, reaching all the way up to Redding and down to the South Bay Area. We are live every Friday night, and this replays every Tuesday night from 9 to 11 p.m. on KBBF 89.1 FM, and is syndicated every Wednesday nights, 6 to 8 p.m. on KWTF 88.1 FM Bodega Bay. All episodes are streamed live from the studio via Google Hangouts on Air, which you can watch on thequeerlife.org. TheQueerLife.org has an archive of every single episode, links to all news, topics mentioned, descriptions, and info for all guests interviewed, access to Trans Atheist Podcast and Lesbianist Podcast, exclusive podcasts from the Queer Life family, and support pages for crisis hotlines and access to mental health professionals for those who are absolutely in need. Please like us on Facebook, facebook.com/thequeerlife. Follow us on Twitter @thequeerlife. Subscribe to us on YouTube, youtube.com/thequeerliferadio. Disclaimer, what you hear on this show should not be taken as strict legal or medical advice. Please use your own discretion and check with a lawyer or doctor to directly address your legal or medical needs. If you are enjoying this program or any other programming on KBBF, visit KBBF.org and hit the donate button. All your donations are greatly appreciated. Again, I am your host, Kaya Kramer, and you are listening to the Queer Life Radio Show. All right, hello everybody. You are listening to the Queer Life Radio Show, LGBT news, modern perspectives, roundtable discussions, and interviews. I am your host, Kaya Kramer, and this is episode 52, the Queer Life's 1-year anniversary, actually. That's 52 episodes, 52 weeks of coming into KBBF and creating this show and creating more content and presenting the news and interviews to you so that you can hear and understand what's going on in the world, LGBT news. And I just have to say, as always, that it is such a privilege for me to be able to come on the air and let you know what is going on in the world as far as LGBT news goes. And I've said this numerous times before in other episodes. Yeah, there are other issues going on. There are other minority groups that are having their own problems. Yeah, that's definitely all a part of it. But this show just so happens to reflect the news that is affecting the LGBT. And that's important. It's important for all the different minority groups to be able to share what their experience is and just honestly let people know what's going on. And I feel so privileged in being able what is going on in my community. I share this to you as a transgender person. I share this to you as a transgender woman of color. I'm born in Thailand and I came over here at a very young age, and several years ago I came out as transgender. And here I am on the radio sharing with you LGBT news from across the United States and from all over the world. And that's a privilege. And I'm sharing that privilege with you. I'm sharing with my education with you. I'm sharing my perspective with you, the listener. If you have any questions for us at any points during this show, I love to hear your feedback. Feel free to tweet us at The Queer Life. That is the @ The Queer Life on Twitter, and I got the feed coming in, and that makes it good. And also, if you're listening to this at any other time, that allows me to get the tweets from you and answer them from you at any time. But if you want something that's a little bit more discreet, feel free to just go to thequeerlife.org and hit the contact link. And you can see exactly what is, say what you want to say without it being broadcasted all across Twitter. And if you ask, of course, I will make it private. But I want to celebrate and share with you how wonderful and fantastic it is to be able to broadcast 1 year later. And just to let you know, we're not going anywhere. We're just moving up, and that's incredible. I mean, gosh, what are the odds that a trans woman of color would be able to broadcast across public radio and to be able to share this knowledge, to share this news with everybody all over the world? And I'm just, again, so thrilled to be sharing all of this with you. Again, if you're just tuning in right now, you are listening to the Queer Life Radio Show, LGBT news, modern perspectives, roundtable discussions, and interviews. I'm your host, Kaya Kramer. We're celebrating 1 year of programming and going to be going on even further and expanding and growing more. So if you know of another broadcasting platform that you think that the Queer Life should be on, let us know. Go to thequeerlife.org/contact or tweet us at thequeerlife and let us know if there's some way that we should be broadcasting that we aren't. Also, too, we are on a podcast. If you just look under your favorite podcasting device or platform, just type in The Queer Life, one word, and you'll find the show. Or if you just type in go to thequeerlife.org, we have a podcast button, which is on the side of the screen, or on every single episode, there is a link to the iTunes in there. So if you like to listen to it on long trips on the road, say you have to drive a couple hours, listen to The Queer Life. It's 153 minutes of awesomeness that is brought to you every single week here in KBBF 89.1 FM, Calistoga. I want to get underway here with what this show does best, and that's reporting the news and sharing some perspectives. And again, anything that I share on this show has been carefully curated and selected. I consider myself a host and a curator, sharing with you what I feel to be is some important news that's going on in the world. Most of it is LGBT. A lot of it is transgender affiliated. This show is somewhat trans-centric, which is hard to avoid as a transgender woman. But also I share with you science and technology and news that generally affects all of us too. So let this be a resource for you. And links are available to every single subject talked about on thequeerlife.org. Again, this is episode 52, The Queer Life 1 year anniversary. First up, we'll be talking about futurism and the fact that it needs more women. And then after that, we'll be going on to Caitlyn Jenner and some discussions about her. Then I'll be talking about Windows 10. If you are still a Windows 7 or Windows 8 user, should you be upgrading to the new Windows 10? And we answer that question for you and more. We'll be talking about the Nigerian president, and he's refusing to consider gay rights. That's from planettransgender.com, which we frequently report from. They have some pretty incredible writers from a transgender perspective. We're going to teach you how to craft a perfect resume with this certain checklist. So if you're interested in that, again, stay tuned. That will be coming up. Be talking about the U.S. military and the transgender ban to be lifted. And that'll be happening Monday, but we'll be diving more into that. The FBI is struggling with cybersecurity because of terrible pay and drug testing. So if you're concerned about cybersecurity and the privacy of your data and the government and the NSA and the FBI, keep listening. Going to be talking about Mike Huckabee. He compares being trans to getting cosmetic surgery, getting breast implants. After that, we'll be talking about scientific proof that your gut is best at making decisions. So if you're the kind of person that's on the fence about making decisions or anything, listen to your gut. We'll be talking about that more and later. The Boy Scouts of America is voting to allow gay scout leaders. That's from NBC News. The FCC is already getting thousands of net neutrality complaints. And more stuff on the transgender reporter, Zoe Tour. And last subject for this evening is a brief guide to quitting a bad habit. So if you're stuck in a rut and you're trying to figure out how to stop smoking or eating fast food or what have you, here's a brief guide on quitting bad habits. You're listening to the Queer Life Radio Show. First up is from Rose Eveleth on theatlantic.com. Rose writes, futurism needs more women. Most of the big names in futurism are men. What does that mean for the direction we're all headed? In the future, everyone's going to have a robot assistant. That's the story, at least. And as part of that long-running narrative, Facebook just launched its virtual assistant. They're calling it Moneypenny. the secretary from the James Bond films, which means the symbol of our march forward once again ends up being a nod back. In this case, Moneypenny is a send-up to an age when Bond's womanizing was a symbol of manliness, and many women were, no matter what they wanted to be doing, secretaries. Why can't people imagine a future without falling into the sexist past? Why does the road ahead keep leading us back to a place that looks like the Tomorrowland of the 1950s? Well, when it comes to Moneypenny, here's a relevant data point. More than 2/3 of Facebook employees are men. That's a ratio reflected among other key group, futurists. Both the World Future Society and the Association of Professional Futurists are headed by women right now, and both of those women talk to me about their desire to bring more women into the field. Cindy Frowen, the head of the Association of Professional Futurists, estimates that about 1/3 of their members are women. Amy Zollman, the CEO of the World Future Society, says that 23% of her group's members identify as female, but most of, quote, top futurists perhaps include one female name. Often that woman is no longer working in the field. Somehow I become a person who reports on futurists. I produce and host a podcast about what might happen in the future called Meanwhile in the Future. I write a column about people living cutting-edge lives for BBC Future, and one thing I've noticed is how overwhelmingly male and white they are. It turns out that what makes someone a futurist and what makes something a futurism isn't well defined. When you ask those who are part of official futurist societies like the APF and the WFS, they often struggle to answer. There are some possible credentials, namely a degree in foresight, an emerging specialty that often intersects with studies of technology and business, but the discipline isn't well established. There's no foresight degree at Yale or Harvard, and there are plenty of people who practice futurology who don't have one. Zollman defines a futurist as a person who embraces a certain way of thinking. Being a futurist these days means that you take seriously a worldview and a set of activities, and the recognition that foresight, with a capital F, isn't just thinking about what are the top 10 things this year, what are the trends unfolding. Frowen says that futurism won't ever be like architecture or medicine, and that it's never going to be a licensed field, but there are still things that many futurists agree people in their field shouldn't do. We think of things now as more systems-based and more uncertain. You don't know what the future is, and that's a basic concept, so we try to avoid the people who think they can always know that this is going to get better. Some people think of science fiction authors as futurists, while others don't. Some members of the APF include singularity researchers, others don't want to. Some people lump transhumanists into a broader category of futurists, others don't. Here are some of the people popularly known as futurists. Aubrey de Grey, the chief researcher at the Strategies for Engineered Negligible Senescence Research Foundation. Elon Musk, the head of SpaceX. Sergey Brin, the co-founder of Google. Ray Kurzweil, the director of engineering at Google. They don't necessarily belong to a particular society. They might not even self-identify as futurists, but they are driving the conversation about the future, very often on stages, in public, backed by profitable corporations or well-heeled investors. Which means the media ends up turning to Brin and Musk and de Grey and Kurzweil to explain what is going to happen, why it matters, and ultimately whether it's all going to be okay. The thing is, the futures that get imagined depend largely on the person or people doing the imagining. So why are there so few women? Much of it comes down to the same reasons there are so few women in science and technology. Fields with direct links to futurism, which has a better ring to it than a strategic foresight, the term some futurists prefer. Zollman says futurism has actually fought to present itself in a certain way. When the field was founded in the 1960s, it came with a reputation that still lingers a bit today. She says, Quote, like magicians, crystal ball gazers, sort of flaky, that's a reputation that followed the WFS for a while, because the field itself had to struggle to be taken seriously. That put more pressure on folks to demonstrate that they were scientific, and it was coded masculine. While futurism includes not simply the future of gadgets, the field found itself pushing away some of the perceived softer elements of foresight, social change, family structures, cultural impacts, in favor of mathematical modeling and technology. Madeline Ashby, a futurist with a degree in strategic foresight, who's worked for organizations like Intel Labs, the Institute for the Future, Sci-Futures, and Nesta, says that another big part of the gender imbalance has to do with optimism. If you ask me, the one reason why futurism as a discipline is so white and male is because white males have the ability to offer the most optimistic vision. She says they can get up on stage and tell us the world will be okay, that technology will fix all our problems, that will live forever. Mark Stevenson wrote a book called An Optimist's Tour of the Future. TED speakers always seem to end their talk, no matter how dire, on an upward-facing note. And so on and so forth. And this article really touches on a very solid point here, that yes, futurism needs more women, which in layman's terms just simply means that the visions of the future need to have more female voices. And I'm not saying that because there's any problem with the futurist voices coming from men. That's not part of the issue at all. But that more in the way to shape the future, we need to be able to more so represent the differences across all gender barriers, across all sexual orientations, across all cultures and nationalities and geographic locations. The future is going to have to appeal to the entirety of humanity. At some point, we will surpass this need to, and I know I'm going to sound a little extreme here as a sort of futurist person myself, but we're going to eventually surpass the need to identify by different races on this planet, by different nations on this planet, that we'll all be united under one flag, Earth. We'll all be Earthlings. We all are Earthlings. And that's a pretty big deal. We are all Earthlings, and we're a part of this, and we're all a part of the future. And so if you are a woman and you're trying to figure out what you want to be doing or how you want to serve your world or serve humanity, get into the sciences, get into technology. The world needs you. The world needs your voice so that we can have a more diversified and broad idea of what it means to develop software, what it means to develop technology, what it means to change the world, and what the priorities are. Because for a long time, it's been white male voices that have been calling the shots. And that's okay. There's nothing wrong with white male voices making decisions, but they can't be the only decision makers. And it's a responsibility for the rest of us to step up and say, hey, I want to be a part of this. And it's a responsibility for those currently in power, in leadership positions, to say, okay, you have a different perspective, and your perspective is different from mine, and that you need, and I want you to share it. And so it has to be a mutually beneficial relationship in terms of our communication. If you're just tuning in right now, you are listening to the Queer Life Radio Show, LGBT news, modern perspectives, roundtable discussions, and interviews. Again, I am your host, Kaya Kramer, and this is episode 52, the Queer Life 1-year anniversary. The article I was talking about and more is available on thequeerlife.org. Subscribe to the podcast, which is available on the webpage as well, or feel free to tweet us at any point and ask any questions. I absolutely love it. Just got a tweet from at 401 auth required. Congratulations to at the Queer Life on hitting 1 year, 52 shows. Yay, heart, or left arrow, and 3, which is the emoji for a heart symbol. So thank you so much at 401 auth required. That's a great tweet. And I also want to make a shout out to at Paulina Angel 82, Mazel Tov to at the Queer Life, at This Is Kaya, and the Queer Life on your 1 year anniversary. So hella proud of you, sweetie. XOXO. Paulina Angel is a transgender activist in Southern California who put together Trans Role Models, a massively successful group on Facebook, and is doing a lot of work in the community remotely from here. Her interview and more is available on thequeerlife.org. Next up here, James Garcia on strangelyprogressive.wordpress.com writes, Caitlyn Jenner, a quote, real woman? The following is a hateful Facebook post about Caitlyn Jenner. I share this with you to highlight the issue that we all experience issues. Also, though, I just want to say that I'm not at any point ever trying to invalidate the experience of biological women. I'm just trying to highlight that transgender people do, in fact, identify with the gender across or beyond that which they were assigned at birth. That's valid and duly noted by the American Psychological Association, which is highly respected and seen as a powerful resource. But on this post, they share a Facebook post from a biological woman, a cisgender woman, and if you'd like to read the entire text and more, you can see it on the queerlife.org. Again, this is called Caitlyn Jenner, a real woman, and this woman writes, I've heard you say you, quote, identify as a woman, but I find that highly unlikely and insulting. You see, Mr. Jenner, there's more to being a woman than beautiful gowns and fake boobs. There's more to being a woman than makeup and pretty hair. This is something we mothers begin teaching our young daughters at an early age. This is what this woman writes on Facebook. And I mean, just to interject reading this, I'm going to be giving commentary as I go through this to try to deconstruct what her perspective is. And she's saying that that she finds it insulting that Caitlyn Jenner identifies as a woman and uses a male pronoun, Mr. Jenner, which is, again, inappropriate and disrespectful because Caitlyn Jenner clearly identifies as female and has stated on national television that she prefers to use female pronouns. And so if you're wanting to be respectful, you'll use those female pronouns when speaking of that person. Again, if you make a mistake and it comes out accidentally and you know Caitlyn Jenner and say Bruce, and it's not something you're using as an intentional way of bringing Caitlyn Jenner down, that's fine. There's no gender police that are going to come around and slap you on the wrists or anything. But it's the idea of showing respect. Again, we're going to be diving more into this article in not too long here, but we will be back after this short break and hearing a couple words from our sponsors. Again, you are listening to the Queer Life Radio Show, LGBT news, modern perspectives, roundtable discussions, and interviews. Again, I'm your host, Kaya Kramer, and we'll be back after this word from our sponsors.
creates profound thoughts in children.
Enriquezca su cerebro cultural. Escuche KBBF, la voz de la comunidad.
All right, hello everybody. Again, you are listening to the Queer Life Radio Show, LGBT news, modern perspectives, roundtable discussions, and interviews. Again, I'm your host, Kaya Kramer, and this is episode 52, the Queer Life 1 year anniversary. I was just reading from an article by James Garcia, Caitlyn Jenner, a quote, real woman, where he shares a post from a biological woman, a cisgender woman, who has stated her dissatisfaction with Caitlyn Jenner and transgender people. And I share this with you because I want to share with you the perspectives of people who don't agree that being transgender is a true state of being. That if you are a transgender woman and you were born male, but you identify as female, that's not real, that it's not valid. It's the idea that once a man, always a man. And I share this with you as a transgender woman, and yeah, I was assigned male at birth. When I came out of the womb, my doctor said, okay, well, you are a boy, and they put it on my birth certificate. But I'm going to be getting underway and more on this in just a moment, but we have a caller, so I'll be right back and bringing you more of this LGBT news. Alright, so I was talking about the validity of transgender identities, and there's a lot of discussion out there that Caitlyn Jenner has brought up as a result of her position in the media and her exposure to the public, which I think is fantastic, because I've had so many people let me know that they heard about Caitlyn Jenner and they're just so happy that, she's finally able to come out and be the woman that she's always wanted to be. And this person here is not happy about Caitlyn Jenner or any other transgender people. I'm going to continue to read from what this biological woman is saying about Caitlyn Jenner here. She says, as a woman of nearly 50 years, I can tell you what it is truly like to be a woman. You may be able to understand or even empathize, but you are definitely not, all caps, able to, quote, identify. For instance, you will never know what it is like to wake up every 28 days with searing stomach pain so bad it doubles you over, yet will still trot off to work or school as though everything is fine. You will never know what it is like to have your car break down on the side of the road, and when a couple men stop to help, your prayer is that your intentions are good, because there's no way on earth you have the ability to physically hang, let alone overpower them. You have no idea what it is like to long to have a child only to have your third miscarriage, yet still manage to be able to share in the joy of all the other young mothers in your life. You will never know what it's like to get pregnant, gain 40 pounds, a 30-year total body weight, hurl all morning long for 4 months straight, yet still care for your other 2 toddlers and not drive your husband to the brink. You'll never know what it is like to give birth to a 10-pound baby boy with absolutely no medication. You'll never know what it's like at the age of 50 to be walking down the streets of Phoenix and popping in the Dairy Queen for a cool, refreshing treat, only to be gripped at that moment with your 4th hot flash of the day. And okay, so I'm gonna break down what this woman is saying here, and she's addressing this letter to Caitlyn Jenner, and saying that Caitlyn Jenner, as a trans woman, will never experience these things, but she says that you won't be able to wake up every 28 days and have a period. Now, not every woman assigned female at birth, not every woman has a period. There are some women who go through their entire lives and never have a period. Are they any less of a woman, even though they were quote unquote born a woman, but they had a medical issue that made it so that they couldn't have a period? This woman also says that if you get stopped by the road, if your car breaks down, and that you have to worry about if the men that are coming to supposedly help you, which sounds kind of sexist to me, because there's a lot of women out there that actually know how to fix their car, or have AAA come pick them up, but not every woman is a damsel in distress, but the idea that you won't be able to overpower them. Well, also too, there are women that are stronger than men, or know how to defend themselves better than men, and so, but it's also saying that transgender women, or Caitlyn Jenner in this case, will have any fear of a man hurting them. I can tell you for a fact that I have spoken to numerous trans women who have experienced sexual abuse and have had their lives in danger because of men who were predatory. What would you say to those trans women? Is their sexual abuse any less valid? Is their assault on their health and well-being any less valid than a biological woman? She also goes on to say you have no idea what it's like to long to have a child only to have your 3rd miscarriage. There are a lot of quote-unquote biological women who are unable to have a child. Would you say that to a woman who has a health issue, or has had a hysterectomy, and say, oh, you're not a real woman, you'll never know what it's like? Does it make, because you're not able to have offspring, does that make you any less of a woman? And she also says you'll never know what it is like at age 50 to be walking down the streets and then popping into Dairy Queen because you're on your 4th hot flash of the day. Breaking news, hot flashes are dictated by hormones. And transgender women who opt to have hormone replacement therapy, HRT, who take the most common cocktail of hormone replacement therapy medications is estrogen via a pill each day or an injection or subdermal estrogen, which changes your hormonal levels. Taking anti-androgens such as spironolactone, which drops your testosterone. And so a lot of trans women are actually in the healthy range for a typical woman their age. If I'm speaking about trans women, and the same goes for trans men. If your hormones are on the same level, you will experience hot flashes. I know many trans women who have experienced hot flashes. Doctors say that you will experience hot flashes. It is a typical symptom of getting on these hormones. As a trans woman myself, I have experienced hot flashes. And let me tell you, ladies, it's pretty intense. I now completely understand, what it's like to get those hot flashes and just feel like you need the AC on, and then anyway, and then your partner's saying it's a little cold in here, and you're like, I'm burning up. This woman who's writing this Facebook post goes on further to say in this letter, she says, I have in my life met many women who have been widowed. For me to walk up to them and say I identify with them would be ludicrous. Like I said earlier, I can empathize with them, but I cannot identify myself as one of them because I don't know what it is like. I can only imagine. And let's not talk about women who have worked through their double mastectomy. So what this person who's writing this letter, there's a misunderstanding about what it means to identify as a woman. And when transgender people say that they identify as being a woman or they identify as being a man, there's no denial about what they are. Not at all. A transgender woman is just that, a transgender woman. A transgender woman will never be a biological woman, will never be a cisgender woman. Cisgender just simply means that it's the opposite of transgender. Instead of identifying across or beyond the gender that you were assigned at birth, cisgender means that you identify with the gender that you were assigned at birth. So most of you out there are cisgender. And that word is, again, not meant to be a slur. It's just to kind of differentiate, because the term biological doesn't necessarily make sense, because I'm a biological transgender woman as opposed to an artificial, like a robot or anything, because we're all biological. This letter to Caitlyn Jenner goes on. She says, no, Mr. Jenner, again, misgendering Caitlyn Jenner. There is more to being a woman than you could ever experience or ever imagine, and lesson number one for all true women is this: Botox injections, plastic surgeries, designer clothing, and public approval is not what makes a woman. A real woman is one who, in spite of the stretch marks, age spots, dirt under her nails, and tired eyes, and even with half plastic photoshopped supermodels as her competition, she has carried herself in such a way that her family, husband, and children see her real beauty and find her far more valuable than rubies or diamonds, and they rise up and call her blessed. Again, I agree. Yeah, Botox injections, plastic surgeries, designer clothing, and public approval doesn't make you a woman. No. But that raises the question, what is a woman? Is a woman somebody who has opted to breed with another human being and have offspring? Does that make a woman? So if there's a woman who's born without the ability to have children, does it make her any less of a woman? According to this person, yeah. And as far as competing with Photoshop supermodels, trans women have to compete with those Photoshop supermodels. We even have in the transgender community our own Photoshop supermodels. Andrea Prejic is one of them. Jamie Clayton, all the beautiful stars. Laverne Cox, beautiful trans women in the public eye who fit into our societal standards of beauty. And those societal standards of beauty say that a beautiful woman is one who has perfect bone structure, one who is skinny and fit, one who has large breasts, one who has a round butt. I learned this when I came out as a trans woman. And not every trans woman is able to fall within that category and be considered beautiful by the public, the same as cisgender women, the same as biological women. The societal standards of beauty are broken. That's just the case for everybody. For men even too. Yeah, not every man can have washboard abs and perfect bone structure and a pocket deep enough that you can buy a fantastic wardrobe. This letter from this woman on Facebook goes on to say, Mr. Jenner, again misgendering, you are a privileged white male living in the USA. In fact, you are so free and so privileged. You can even spend your massive amounts of money to change your outward appearance to whatever you wish. That is not something most women around the globe are free to do even if they wanted. Most women in our world don't even have access to a high school education. So, Mr. Jenner, I find your claim to identify as a woman, quote unquote, disingenuous, uneducated, and honestly quite offensive. Yeah, Caitlyn Jenner has a boatload of money, and she's been able to afford facial feminization surgery, breast augmentation, and other surgeries. Yeah, that's a privilege. Absolutely. Growing up as a white male is a privilege as well. Yeah, that's a privilege. But nobody comes out as transgender to win in a popularity contest. Nobody comes out as transgender to make a spectacle of themselves. Nobody comes out as transgender just to rile up some feathers, or nobody comes out as transgender because it's the cool thing to do. People come out as transgender because they're transgender. And there's nothing that would change that. Mind you, there's a lot of people who feel to be transgender that will never come out because of family reasons, because of job reasons, or what have you. And that's valid. No, but I'm not telling everybody who feels to be transgender to come out because it might not be safe for you. Again, if you have any questions about your gender identity, speak to a mental health professional. I have a list of mental health professionals qualified to assess gender identity on the queerlife.org under Get Help. Got a list. And they're all in the San Francisco Bay Area, and another list for Sonoma County. So if you need somebody to talk to, I've got phone numbers and emails and websites all on the queerlife.org. But to say that transgender women don't know what it's like to be a woman, that's partially true. I don't know as a transgender woman what it's like to be a cisgender woman. I'll never know that. Yeah, that's just a reality. But I know what it's like to be a transgender woman, and as a transgender woman, there's a lot of overlap from how other women are treated. I've walked down the street and I've been disrespected and had men say that they wanted to do sexual things to me because I'm presenting as female. I've had men whistle at me as I walk down the street. I've had men say disgusting things on the internet to me as a woman. And I've even experienced disrespect in terms of having my voice seen as an authority or being able to be seen as an expert because I'm being perceived as a woman. Whether or not they see that I'm transgender or not, it's because they see a female in front of them. And I understand more and more what it's like for women in this world. And yes, I grew up with the privilege of presenting male for 20 years of my life, and that shaped me. So yes, transgender women are not the same as biological women or cisgender women. But we are women, just a different kind of women. And so that's shared by the writer James Garcia on strangelyprogressive.wordpress.com. You can find that link and more on thequeerlife.org. This is episode 52, The Queer Life 1 year anniversary. If you're listening, just tuning in right now, you're listening to the Queer Life radio show. LGBT news, modern perspectives, roundtable discussions, and interviews. Again, I am your host, Kaya Kramer, and we're broadcasting live right now. If you're listening to this on Friday, you're listening to this on KBBF 89.1 FM Calistoga, or you're listening to this on thequeerlife.org or on YouTube or on the Hangouts app, because yes, I stream this live via Google Hangouts on air and their video streaming process. This radio show, it has been visual for 52 episodes. Next up here is from Eric Ravenscraft on lifehacker.com. Eric writes, the best Windows 10 features you probably haven't heard about. Windows 10 has arrived. Whether you're jumping the line or still trying to decide if you should upgrade, chances are you've heard about some of the best new features of Windows 10. Here are some of the really awesome ones you might not have heard about. And so if you have Windows 7 or Windows 8.1, if you have Windows XP, you definitely should upgrade your computer. Windows XP has been unsupported for about a year now, and I don't quote me on that, but it's unsupported now, and so that there are security issues creeping in. You do not want to be using an unsupported operating system because it leaves you open to hacking. First up on the Windows 10 features is you can search for and pin specific sections of the Settings app. Veterans Windows users will recognize that the control panel is the place to find nearly all settings you could possibly want to tweak. However, with Windows 10, Microsoft is moving more and more of these items to the Settings app. While the control panel still exists, Settings is featured more prominently in the Start menu. It's easier to navigate away. More importantly, though, you can pin subsections of the Settings app to your Start menu. For example, say you want to have a quick shortcut to Windows Update, you can actually pin that to the Start menu, which is the little Windows button at the bottom left of your Windows computer. Also, too, you can pin the recycle bin to the Start menu as well. So if you're looking for the recycle bin, or you don't want it on your desktop, but you want it in your Start menu, you can click the Start menu and you can have the recycle bin stored in there. You can also clear out your hard drive with the new storage analyzer. Every once in a while, you're going to need a decent disk space analyzer to find the junk you can get rid of. In the past, we've relied on third-party apps to perform this analysis. Now, Microsoft has its own built-in storage analyzer. It lets you know where all the junk files are. From the Start menu, search for the Storage section of Settings app. From here, you can choose a drive to analyze. You can also uninstall nearly any app from the Start menu as well, just by right-clicking on it. Uninstalling applications in previous versions of Windows was the worst. You could either wade through the control panel's list of apps or download yet another third-party app for more thorough installation. Now you can right-click any app in the Start menu and select Uninstall to remove it. Pretty simple there. You can do even more in the updated command prompt. So when Windows 10 was first announced, Microsoft revealed that the command prompt would finally support Control-V. This was just the beginning. However, the new console supports selecting and copying text from the window itself. If you right-click the title bar and select properties, you can also enable line wrapping for text. So if you like to use the console and you're more of a programmer type, that is pretty useful. Also added some new keyboard shortcuts. You can snap windows to corners now. You can customize quick actions in the notification tray, which is at the bottom right where you see the time is, all those other actions down below. And you can lock your computer with your fingerprint. Some laptops have fingerprint scanning technology, or you can get a USB fingerprint scanner and wake up your computer with just your fingerprint, which if you have a Samsung Galaxy S6 or if you have an iPhone 6 you've been using, you can activate fingerprint scanning software, which is actually really, really useful. That is from lifehacker.com, an article written by Eric Ravenscraft. The 10 Windows 10 features you probably haven't heard about. You can find that article and more on thequeerlife.org. This is episode 52, the Queer Life 1 year anniversary. Next up here is from Amy Walker on planettransgender.com. Amy writes, Nigerian president refuses to consider gay rights. Nigerian President Muhammadu Buhari visited U.S. Congress yesterday, Wednesday, the 9th of July, where he shut down any questions on marriage equality in his home country. Speaking at a joint session of the Senate and House Committees on Foreign Affairs during his 4-day visit, Buhari said emphatically that gay sex would remain illegal in Nigeria and is found to be abhorrent to African culture. Femi Adesina, the president's special advisor on media and publicity, later tweeted to clarify Buhari's stance. Quote, the issue of gay marriage came up yesterday. PMB was point blank. Sodomy is against the law in Nigeria and abhorrent to our culture. Talks shifted to another matter once PMB emphatically stated Nigeria's stand on same-sex marriage. The issue was not pushed. Nigeria has one of the harshest anti-gay laws in the entire world, which bans gay marriage and can punish any same-sex couples with up to 14 years in prison, with 10-year sentences being applied to anyone else who was involved in the ceremony, including guests in attendance. Last week, U.S. Assistant Secretary of State for African Affairs Linda Thomas-Greenfield said that the U.S. would be mounting substantial pressure on the Nigerian government to rethink its harsh laws. Though these pressures would appear to not yet be in place, is that they could not even press the issue during Buhari's visit. This is from Amy Walker on planettransgender.com. Nigerian president refuses to consider gay rights. This article and more is available on thequeerlife.org. This is episode 52, the Queer Life 1 year anniversary. We're going to go away for a short break and some words from our sponsors, but we will be back. You're just tuning in right now. You are listening to the Queer Life Radio Show. LGBT news, modern perspectives, roundtable discussions, and interviews. I'm your host, Kai Kramer, and again, we will be back after a short word from our sponsors. Thanks so much for listening.
Estás escuchando KBBF 89.1 FM, Calistoga, Santa Rosa, la voz de tu comunidad.
Can't afford a down payment on a home? Tired of renting? Do you and your family want a place to finally call your own? We'd like to tell you about an exciting home ownership opportunity through Burbank Housing. Catalina Townhomes is a 60-home community in an emerging neighborhood located less than a mile from downtown Santa Rosa and the Santa Rosa Marketplace. Catalina Townhomes is available to buyers who have not owned a home in the past 3 years, have good credit, steady income, and a desire to build a home and a community. Burbank Housing works with owners on the construction of their 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom home, so the homeowner's sweat equity counts as a $20,000 down payment. A lower fixed monthly payment means that you can predict your housing costs starting as low as $1,450 a month. Come discover Catalina Townhomes and everything our location has to offer. For applications and more information, visit www.catalinatownhomes.com or call us at 707-526-9782.
You're listening to KBBF Community Radio 89.1 FM, Calistoga, Santa Rosa.
Estás escuchando KBBF 89.1 FM, Radio Cultura, Calistoga, Santa Rosa.
Alright, hello everybody. You are listening to the Queer Life Radio Show, LGBT news, modern perspectives, roundtable discussions, and interviews. This is episode 52, the Queer Life 1-year anniversary. We've been on the air for 52 episodes, one episode each week. 52 weeks makes 1 year. Oh my gosh, my math skills is amazing. Just kidding. But no, really, we've been on the air for 1 year. And it, again, like I've said, it is such a privilege to be able to get here on public radio and share with you LGBT news from around the world and share with you some perspectives and some news and just all the above as a broadcaster, as a curator of news, as a host, as a trans woman, as a person of color. And I'm just really, really just so happy to be here with you. And I'm glad that you're tuning in and listening to this. If you've been a long-time listener to the show, I implore you to check us out on thequeerlife.org, which is on the web. And if you can't remember that URL, just Google The Queer Life, and you'll find the website, because I have magical search engine optimization powers. But I want to jump on for this next hour. It's 4 minutes after the hour, and the next list of subjects we'll be talking about is how to craft the perfect resume. Then we'll be talking about the U.S. military's transgender ban and whether it's going to be lifted, how the FBI is struggling with cybersecurity, a little bit of news on Mike Huckabee and more stuff about his anti-trans rhetoric, scientific proof that your gut is best at making decisions, some news from the Boy Scouts of America and allowing gay scout leaders. The FCC is already getting thousands of net neutrality complaints. Net neutrality and the Federal Communications Commission. And gosh dang it, Zoe Tour, please apologize. More stuff from the transgender reporter Zoe Tour, who has been saying some things and doing some things that the community doesn't necessarily agree with. And last for this evening is a brief guide to quitting bad habits. So if any of this is interesting to you, stay tuned. We will have this and more. And again, you're listening to the Queer Life Radio Show. Follow us on thequeerlife.org. Visit us on Facebook, facebook.com/thequeerlife. Tweet us at the Queer Life, the @ sign, and then the Queer Life, one word. Feel free to email us on thequeerlife.org/contact. Follow us on YouTube, youtube.com/thequeerliferadio, or just in YouTube, just look for The Queer Life and go to the podcast, The Queer Life, one word, or links to all this stuff is available on thequeerlife.org. Again, you're listening to episode 52 of The Queer Life 1 year anniversary. And this up from Thorin Klazowski on lifehacker.com. Thorin writes, craft a perfect resume summary with this checklist. Recruiters don't tend to spend much time looking at resumes, so getting to the point as quickly as possible is a must. Over at Harvard Business Review, they created a checklist to make your resume's summary section noteworthy and short. The basic idea of a summary is to instantly say what you are good at and what you've done while capturing the reader's attention. Here's Harvard Business Review's checklist for what and what not to include on your resume. Number 1, tailor your summary to each job application. Highlight your areas of expertise most relevant to that position. So if you're applying for a specific job, tailor the summary and the content to that specific job. You don't, the recruiter or the hiring manager wants to make sure that you're an exact fit for their company, and they're not going to have much time to do it, so focus it. Next is then focus on specific results you've achieved in those areas of expertise, how other organizations have improved because of you. And so that just lets the hiring manager know that you have specific areas of expertise and that you know what you're doing as it applies to the job that you are applying for. Next, note the types of organizations and industries you've worked in as they are relevant to the job you're applying for. Also, include years of experience. That's really important to know how long you've been doing that type of work. And avoid generic terms such as results-driven, proven track record, excellent communication skills, team player. That is written on way too many resumes, and by putting that in there, you're just kind of lumping yourself in with a blur of resumes. So no need to say results-driven, proven track record, excellent communication skills, team player. If you are all those things, it will be demonstrated through your resume. And you basically want to do all this in about 200 words, which can be pretty tough. That link to that list right there and more is available on thequeerlife.org. This is episode 52, the Queer Life 1 year anniversary. And so, again, we are several years after the recession, but there's still a lot of work to be done, and there's still a lot of people who are unemployed and have difficulty getting jobs. And if you find yourself to be a recent graduate in whatever field you got your degree in and you're still wondering, heck, how do I get a job too? And so competition has never been fiercer, and getting those jobs is not going to be easy, and you might have to get into lower level areas, or your field might in fact just be impacted. These are modern issues in America today, even in populous places such as San Francisco, because everybody else is trying to get a job just like you. And so that's don't feel like just because you have your degree that it's going to guarantee you a job, and it's going to be a combination of your resume, your speaking ability, your interviewing ability, your education, and how you fit into that job and that culture too. And so again, as always on this show, I say keep trying, whether you're gay, straight, lesbian, bisexual, transgender, what have you. It's hard for everybody to get a job right now. Next up is from Sunny V. Brydom from advocate.com. U.S. military's transgender ban begins to fall Monday. The Pentagon is moving quickly to dismantle the military's long-standing ban on service by openly transgender Americans, with the first meeting to accomplish that goal set for Monday, according to USA Today. In the meantime, the estimated 15,500 transgender Americans currently serving the armed forces can rest a bit easier. As Secretary of Defense Ashton Carter issued a memo Tuesday outlining how the ban will fall and instructing top military officials to prepare to integrate transgender service members within 6 months. Quote, the working group will start with the assumption that transgender persons can serve openly without adverse impact on military effectiveness and readiness unless and except where objective. Practical impediments are identified and shall present its recommendations to me within 180 days, Carter wrote in Tuesday's memo, reports USA Today. This latest development comes less than 3 weeks after Carter announced the creation of a working group tasked with identifying any, quote, objective practical impediments to transgender Americans serving openly in the armed forces. Since July 13th, any discharge orders or reenlistment denials for transgender troops have had to be, quote, personally approved by acting Under Secretary of Defense for Personnel and Readiness Brad Carson. Just weeks after taking office in January, Carter told a group of troops deployed in Kandahar, Afghanistan, that he was, quote, open-minded about allowing transgender Americans to serve openly. Among those enlisted troops hearing the secretary speak in February was at least one transgender U.S. airman, military advocates note. The 6-month timeline for implementation would give commanders of each service branch time to address medical, legal, and administrative issues involved in overturning the long-standing regulation that has, since the 1970s, declared transgender Americans categorically unfit to serve. Notably, the secretaries of that Army, Air Force, Navy, and Marines had all previously escalated the level of commander who would discharge transgender troops to a Pentagon-level official in recent months. Veterans and active duty members of the military who are currently serving in silence are eager to see the outdated policy revised with a focus on speedy, smooth implementation. When Carter first announced the pending change earlier this month, many of those groups issued statements commending the move. Quote, this is a tribute to the honorable military service of thousands of transgender Americans, said Allison Robinson, Army veteran and director of policy at Sparta, an advocacy and support organization for LGBT service members, veterans, and their families. Quote, there is much more to do, but the Secretary's clear intent to treat transgender soldiers, sailors, airmen, and Marines with the same dignity and on equal footing and other service members aligns with the core values of our armed forces. We stand ready to provide resources to the working group for the regulations changes required to take care of all the troops. 6 months is more than enough time to hammer out the details. This isn't new ground, Robinson continued at that time. A number of our military allies deploy transgender troops alongside American forces downrange, as do DoD contractors. Police and fire departments have managed transgender inclusion. I'm confident that our military leaders can handle this as smoothly as the repeal of Don't Ask, Don't Tell. This month's announcement is welcome news, not just for the 15,500 transgender personnel serving currently, but for all Americans, said Aaron Belkin, director of the Palm Center, which conducted several of the large-scale studies determining there was, quote, no compelling medical reason to exclude transgender Americans from military service. The Pentagon could move quickly to replace the ban with inclusive policy, and its review process should be informed by the social science research that explains how to do so. Both the research as well as the lessons of 18 foreign militaries that have lifted their bans on transgender personnel show that lifting the ban will not be difficult. And now there's an estimated 15,500 transgender military personnel serving in all branches of the U.S. Armed Forces. And so saying to these transgender servicemen and women that they are unfit to serve, even though they are currently serving and serving our country at that, is it's a denial of service. And by getting past this, by allowing trans people to openly identify in the military so long as they are fit to serve in the military, that's a big deal. And other countries all over the world who have impressive and big militaries are allowing transgender people to openly serve in the military so long as they are fit to serve. Being transgender is not considered a mental illness, according to the American Psychological Association, which is a highly accredited organization and body that makes basically all the rules on what is mental illness and what isn't. And so long as somebody is physically healthy and mentally healthy and can serve, and it doesn't create any kind of distraction, then that's let them serve, let them be in the military, let them be service people. It's an honor, and why take that honor away from people just because they're transgender? I mean, if you look at people like Kristen Beck, who was a Navy SEAL, you know, one of the elite soldiers for the United States. Was she any less fit to serve? Were the Navy SEALs wrong in elevating her to that rank? No. They saw her as a fit candidate and they made her a part of their ranks because of her qualifications, and they didn't disqualify her because of being transgender. Next up here is from theadvocate.com. Trudy Ring writes, Huckabee compares being trans to getting breast implants. Republican presidential aspirant Mike Huckabee believes transgender soldiers will make the military into a, quote, social organization, and that providing access to gender-affirming surgeries is like providing breast enhancement for a woman who wants to be a, quote, 38D rather than a 34A. Huckabee, a former Arkansas governor, made the remarks to host J.D. Hayworth on right-wing Newsmax TV's Newsmax Prime show in an interview broadcast Wednesday. He was reacting to fellow candidate Jeb Bush's comments that he's okay with allowing transgender military members to serve openly as long as it just doesn't hurt morale. Quote, it's naive to think it doesn't affect morale, Huckabee said. Men are men and women are women. The idea of open service by trans soldiers will be allowed under and in the works change and Pentagon policy is, quote, absurd, he said, before recycling old arguments about the dangers of social experiments. Most recently used to try to thwart the 2011 repeal of the military's ban on out LGBT troops known as Don't Ask, Don't Tell. Quote, "The military is not a social organization," he continued. "The military is not a place where we try out experiments. The military is designed to kill people and break things. The purpose of the military is to train a fighting force to defend this country and to fight our battles. It's not to fight the battles of sexual identity or orientation." Quote, "Taxpayers are not responsible for paying for sex change operations," he continued, going on to compare such operations to elective cosmetic surgeries. Quote, "We don't do breast enhancements, which would be a part of that. If we're going to do it for somebody who's transgender, would we not do it for a female who said, I'd feel better about myself if I was a 38D rather than a 34A? Huckabee, who offended many in recent days by likening the proposed Iran nuclear arms treaty to the Holocaust, is the preferred presidential candidate of only about 5% of Republicans, according to an average of national polls, CNN reports. However, that's enough to put him in the top 10 of the crowded Republican field, now at 17 candidates, meaning he'll get a spot in the first primetime debate set for 9 p.m. August 6th on the Fox News channel. I've got a clip here of Mike Huckabee talking about transgender troops and saying that the public shouldn't. But I want to comment here on it on his statement saying that, well, why don't, if we allow transgender people to get breast augmentation, then we should allow biological women to get breast augmentation. Well, that's not true. Breast augmentation is not covered by any health insurances, and it's not covered by any national health care. Breast augmentation is cosmetic, yeah. For even for women who feel like they need it. It's yeah, that's understandable. But and if we were to provide that to trans women, of course we should provide it to biological women or cisgender women. But also he's commenting on the idea that gender reassignment surgery, also previously known as quote-unquote the sex change operation, which is an old term, we go by gender reassignment surgery, or now more recently gender confirmation surgery. Again, the language is changing to be most appropriate in terms of best use for language and terminology. But that surgery, which is actually covered by a lot of healthcare providers and by Medi-Cal and national healthcare coverage, because it affects the well-being of a lot of transgender people. And it is a huge approval process to even get it. You can't just go to the doctor and say, okay, well, I want a vagina today. You can't just do that. It's a years-long process of approvals, and it depends on your health insurance. You go to them and you begin the process, and you will have to have been out for 2 years. You had to have been on hormone replacement therapy for 1 year. Your therapist has to identify you as transgender. Your psychologist has to identify you as transgender. You have to go before a board of doctors who are trained experts on not only being doctors, but on gender identity. And then maybe you're approved for maybe a copay, if you're lucky, for gender reassignment surgery. And it is very much not considered a cosmetic surgery. For a lot of transgender people, it's considered a birth defect, and it's corrective. And for many trans people, gender reassignment surgery saves lives. So I want to play for you a clip of Mike Huckabee here talking about what it means to have transgender troops in the military. Here's that clip right now.
Jeb Bush has said that he is fine with transgender soldiers so long as it does not affect morale. Do you agree?
It's naive to think that it doesn't affect morale. Men are men, women are women. There's a distinction, there's a difference. The military should understand that and should respond to that. The military is not a social organization. The military is not a place where we try out experiments. The military is designed to kill people and break things. The purpose of the military is to train a fighting force to defend this country and to fight our battles. It's not to fight the battles of sexual identity or orientation. It's to fight the battles that threaten American sovereignty and American freedom. So I think I'd be very clear about the nature of the military and the fact that we're going to expect there to be a clear understanding of the purpose of our military.
So as Commander-in-Chief, I believe the man's name, he was Bradley Manning, now he's Chelsea Manning. As Commander-in-Chief, you would devote no resources to dealing with sexual identity and keeping folks like that in the military?
Taxpayers are not responsible for paying for sex change operations. Let's just look at it logically. If the taxpayers are going to be on the hook to say, okay, we're going to give this person surgery to change his or her gender, and first of all, just to say, I feel differently, that's absurd that we would just let people identify. But if they want to go through a gender reassignment surgically, that's not a taxpayer responsibility. We don't do breast enhancements, which would be a part of that. Well, if we're going to do it for somebody who says they're transgender, would we not do it for a female who said, I'd feel better about myself if I was a 38D rather than a 34A? I hate to be so blunt, but I mean, seriously, this is how absurd this gets. This gets absurd. And we're using the dollars of taxpayers, and we're using the atmosphere of the military, which is not designed to be a social club or some type of organization where we help people to feel better about themselves. You sign up to defend this country, and that's what you do. And if there's something that makes it difficult for you to defend this country, then maybe the military is not the right place for you.
That was a short clip of Mike Huckabee talking about transgender service members and the position of the military in supporting gender identity, not sexual identity and sexual orientation. It's two different things. There's sexual orientation, which is who you are romantically and sexually attracted to. And there is gender identity. Gender identity is not sexual identity. Your gender is not about your sexuality. And so I'm just making a little bit of a clarification there. And again, it's just clearness of the use of the English language. You can find that article and more on thequeerlife.org. If you're just tuning in right now, you are listening to the Queer Life Radio Show. LGBT news, modern perspectives, roundtable discussions, and interviews. I am your host, Kaya Kramer, and this is episode 52, the Queer Life 1 year anniversary. And again, like I said, I'm so excited to be sharing this with you. Visit us, follow us on Facebook, facebook.com/thequeerlife, tweet us at thequeerlife, go to youtube.com/thequeerliferadio, follow our podcast, The Queer Life, one word, and we are going to be back after this short break and some words from our sponsors. Again, you are listening to The Queer Life Radio Show.
Estás escuchando KBBF 89.1 FM, Radio Cultura.
Desde Santa Rosa, para el norte de California, transmite KBBF 89.1 FM.
Alright, hello everybody. You are listening to the Queer Life Radio Show, LGBT news, modern perspectives, roundtable discussions, and interviews. Again, I am your host, Kaya Kramer, and this is episode 52, the Queer Life 1 year anniversary. Go to thequeerlife.org and watch this episode. Yes, I said watch because we stream via Google Hangouts on air on the interwebs and through the powers of technology. And right now we are in the running to be picked for best news and politics radio show on mixcloud.com. So we've been voted into the finalists as one of the premier shows, and so a board of judges will be choosing whether or not that we are one of the winners, and then so that should be pretty interesting. Then we'd win a trip to Zurich and to the international radio festival and all that good stuff. But so if you know any other outlets that could be using the Queer Life Radio Show, or you know anybody else that should be interviewed by the Queer Life Radio Show, feel free to email us. Go to thequeerlife.org and hit the contact button, and just let us know if there's somebody you think that we should be interviewing on this show. I would love to read some of your responses and to get them back. And if you have just any comments for us or for me, I really like reading those as well, or whether they're positive or negative. There's just, so much that's going on. And so I feel so privileged to be able to share all this with you as a trans woman of color. Okay, next up is from Matt Novak on Gizmodo.com. The FBI is struggling with cybersecurity because of terrible pay and drug tests. It's no secret that American businesses and the government are under constant attack from hackers around the world. That's just the nature of living in the 21st century. But a new audit says that America is even less prepared to defend against these attacks than we thought. The problem, competent people don't want to work for the FBI because of non-competitive pay and a tough requirement relating to a potential employee's drug history, going back as far as 10 years. The new report from the Justice Department explains that the FBI's Next Generation Cyber Initiative, launched in 2012, has seen plenty of setbacks. Chief among them is that they just can't snag the top-level cybersecurity experts that they'd like. The private sector is simply offering people more money than the Justice Department, and even if the FBI finds someone good, they often have to turn them down because of antiquated background check rules. From the reports, another FBI official told us that the FBI loses a significant number of people who may be interested because of the FBI's extensive background check process and other requirements, such as all employees must be United States citizens and must not have used marijuana in the past 3 years and cannot have used any other illegal drugs in the past 10 years. Another factor may be that private sector entities are able to offer technically trained cyber professionals higher salaries than the FBI can offer. These and other policies have left the FBI's task force understaffed. The report found that of the 134 computer scientists that it had been authorized to hire under the initiative, it still had 52 open positions. What's perhaps more astounding was that of the 56 FBI field offices, 5 didn't even have a single computer scientist assigned to the office's cyber task force. The FBI is currently examining the recruitment methods of the NSA and CIA with the hopes of attracting qualified candidates for employment. Some of those techniques will no doubt include higher pay. That's from Matt Novak on Gizmodo.com. The FBI struggling with cybersecurity because of terrible pay and drug tests. And now, I've reported on this previously before on this show and at other times, but it has become apparent that we are again on the edge of a cyber apocalypse. I know that that sounds a little heavy, but we are in desperate need of addressing our cyber pitfalls that are going on in this country, and we aren't ready for it. There is going to be a huge cyber attack that will happen, and if the government doesn't get on board with cyber security, then we're going to be, then our logins are going to be at risk. Our social security numbers are going to be at risk. Much that we are working on in the digital world is going to be at risk, and the world needs more information security professionals and computer scientists. The government needs it, and this country needs them, but they're going to have to get past some of these old and antiquated rules. If somebody has used drugs in the past, they're going to need to look at it in a different way. And of course, the government may not be able to offer higher pay than some private information security sectors. They need it to be at least competitive, and that's something that's absolutely just as important. If you believe in our nation's security, you need to believe in our nation's cyber security, and that's a big deal. Next up here from Lydia Dishman on fastcompany.com, Lydia writes, scientific proof that your gut is best at making decisions. There are 2 overarching kinds of decision making. One requires research and careful thought as to probable outcomes. The other simply goes with your gut. It may make sense to stick with the other latter in matters of the heart, but a number of recent scientific studies show that in business, the inner voice working in concert with cold, hard information could lead to better decision-making. The gut is faster than the mind. Neuroscientist Antonio Damasio at the University of Southern California tells us that it is important to pay attention to somatic markers. Originating in the insula, the island in the brain responsible for social emotions like pride or guilt, and the amygdala, which cues our response to threats, they send messages that something just feels right or it doesn't. The more you pay attention to the outcome of trusting your intuition in combination with facts, the better your future decision making can become. Damasio tested this theory in an experiment called the Iowa Gambling Task, in which subjects could choose between decks of cards to win money. Among the choices, 2, quote, good decks that turned up consistent profits, and 2 others with riskier cards. Though it took about 50 cards to make a decision to switch decks and 80 cards to explain why, the subject's skin was also being monitored for response to stress. The physical reaction showed that after drawing just 10 risky cards, the body was already displaying signs of anxiety, which meant that their feelings were firing signals faster than rational thought. Those somatic markers aren't 100% reliable. They shouldn't be ignored. The right way to regard risk and uncertainty. More recent research on the complexity of making decisions based on gut feelings is being done by Shabnam Mousavi, an assistant professor at the Johns Hopkins Carey Business School. She is the lead author of Risk, Uncertainty, and Heuristics, a paper that explores the idea that intuition can be a more useful tool than deliberate calculation in certain situations. Their research digs deeper into Nobel Prize winner Daniel Kahneman's work, which showed how often humans elect to make a snap judgment based on intuition rather than deliberating with available information. Mousavi proposes that too much information can be just as misleading as a hunch in some cases. One example came from quizzing both German and US students to see if they could guess which city was larger, Detroit or Milwaukee. Score, Germans 90% correct versus Americans 60% correct. Why? Because the Germans simply picked the one they'd heard more about and guessed it was the larger of the two. Americans, armed with knowledge of these cities, didn't reach for the obvious and failed, though this seems like a simplistic example. The researchers note that given 2 cities that students had never heard of would have changed the results dramatically. Likewise, some financial newbies have no trouble picking better stocks than a seasoned expert, but give them a portfolio of unrecognizable brands and watch the game change, which validates Damasio's theory that the experience of trusting the gut and getting something right or wrong is key in making good decisions. Mousavi posits that it's important to make intuitive decision-making one step further by recognizing why people have developed such instincts and the best place to use them. While business favors doing a cost/benefit analysis and a rational approach before deciding which way to go, in an article for Johns Hopkins The Hub, Mousavi recommends an alternative. Create a decision tree that starts with a fundamental question: if the worst-case scenario of a proposal were to occur, could you survive? If no, don't pursue it. If yes, the next question might be whether the company was well positioned as a first mover in an area by making each decision sequentially. The company can more effectively limit its information to relevant factors, avoiding information overload and not attempting to quantify the unquantifiable. When you think about how much data is flying at us at any given minute, over 100 billion emails are sent and received every day this year alone. There may be something to be said for stanching the fire hose of information that threatens to clog up our brain with useless facts. Oh no, but keep listening to the Queer Life Radio Show because it's not all useless facts. Further questions. For those still on the fence about a current decision, Angela Gia Kim, co-founder of Women Entrepreneurs Network, Savior the Success, broke down her thought process for dissecting gut feelings in a previous interview. Quote, do I feel good around this person or choice? Does this person or situation give me or take my energy? Do I feel empowered or disempowered? Am I going toward an adventure or running from fear? Am I listening to my lessons learned from the past? Would I make the same choice if I had $1 million in my pocket right now? Do I feel respected and valued? Am I trying to control the situation, or am I leaving room for expansion? From here, it's just a matter of trusting both cognitive and emotional responses to figure out the right way to go. And again, if you're just darn confused about some decision making in your life like me, just go with your gut. Sometimes it's the best way to go. That was from Lydia Dishman on fastcompany.com, scientific proof that your gut is best at making decisions. Next up is from Pete Williams on NBCnews.com. Pete writes, Boy Scouts of America votes to allow gay scout leaders. The governing body of the Boy Scouts of America voted Monday to end its decades-long ban on gay scout leaders. The organization's National Executive Board, meeting in Texas, concluded that the policy of excluding gay adults was no longer legally defensible. And I just, I want to also mention too that this article, and the reason why I've been particularly reporting on Boy Scouts of America is because for a long time in my own life, your host is I was a Boy Scout, and I'm an Eagle Scout, and the Boy Scouts was actually really proud time in my life where I really enjoyed what I was doing with that organization, but they've had a very strong anti-gay policy, and but they've just recently said that excluding gay adults as leaders is no longer legally defensible, and that decision was approved by 79% of the board. While the national ban is gone effective immediately, local scouting units retain the ability to reject gay applicants for leadership positions if hiring them would violate the unit's religious beliefs. The Boy Scouts National Organization said it would defend any local scouting group's good faith refusal to admit a scouting leader based upon the group's religious principles. This change allows scouting members and parents to select local units chartered by organizations with similar beliefs that best met the needs of their families, said a statement from the Scouts leadership. For far too long, this issue has divided and distracted us, former Defense Secretary Robert Gates, Scouting's current president, said in a statement. Now it's time to unite behind our shared belief in the extraordinary power of Scouting to be a force for good in a community and in the lives of its youth members. The vote represents a remarkably fast turnaround for the Boy Scouts, which only 2 years ago voted to admit gay young people as scouts, but kept the ban on adult gay scout leaders. Since then, scouting officials have said rapidly moving legal developments force a reassessment. Gates told the organization in May that it must brace for change. We must deal with the world as it is, not as we might wish it to be. The status quo in our movement's membership standards cannot be sustained. Nearly half the states now have laws prohibiting discrimination on the basis of sexual orientation, and almost 150 local governments have adopted similar provisions. Gay adults rejected as scout leaders have threatened to sue, and New York's Attorney General opened an investigation of the employment policy at the Boy Scouts of America. It would be a losing effort, says an internal Boy Scouts of America memo obtained by NBC News, for the BSA to continue protecting its policy. The memo concludes that a protracted legal battle is unwinnable. The vote allowing local units to turn away gay leaders was condemned by some former scout leaders as a timid measure that would allow discrimination to continue. It's Peter McGrath, the gay leader of the Transatlantic Council Boy Scouts of America, called the vote an expedient move to preempt legal action against BSA National rather than a genuine attempt to make BSA inclusive. John Stemberger, a Florida lawyer who started a breakaway organization called Trail Life USA after the 2013 vote to admit gay scouts, said by ending the national ban on gay scout leaders, the Boy Scouts places the churches and religious institutions who sponsor BSA troops at greater legal risk. Roughly 70% of the local scouting units are sponsored by religious organizations, but some churches have been openly critical of the ban on gay scout leaders. 15 years ago, the U.S. Supreme Court upheld the Scouts' rights to exclude an assistant scoutmaster, James Dale, after he came out as gay. Now, the Scouts have concluded that they would lose a similar case. James Dale himself agrees. Quote, even if you don't exclude a young person, when they become 18 years old, they're suddenly not good enough anymore. That's definitely the wrong message for the Boy Scouts of America. Other rights organizations also noted that Monday's move was perhaps only a half step. Today's vote by the Boy Scouts of America to allow gay, lesbian, and bisexual adults to work and volunteer is a welcome step toward erasing a stain on this important organization, said Human Rights Campaign President Chad Griffin in a statement after the vote. But including an exemption for troops sponsored by religious organizations and undermines and diminishes the historic nature of today's decision. That was from Pete Williams on NBCNews.com. Boy Scouts of America votes to allow gay scout leaders. And we are just about out of time here. If you're just tuning in right now, you've been listening to the Queer Life Radio Show, LGBT news, modern perspectives, roundtable discussions, and interviews. Again, I am your host, Kaya Kramer, and this is episode 52, the Queer Life 1-year anniversary, 52 weeks of broadcasting, and it has been an absolute pleasure to be hosting and curating for you over KBBF 89.1 FM, KWTF 88.1 FM, over the web, over podcasts, over YouTube, on thequeerlife.org, on Facebook, on Twitter, all that. I'm absolutely so pleased and privileged to be sharing my perspective and the news and all that good stuff. Again, it is 10 minutes to the hour, and I want to bid you all a wonderful, wonderful evening. Have a good night. Be well.